Welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Well, let's start with the House Democratic subpoenas of the State Department of a massive set of documents, as well as 5 witnesses for this week. Will President Trump comply with the House subpoena?
That's going to be between the president's attorneys, White House counsel's office, and the House committees. I have no news, unfortunately, to make on that issue, Chris. But what I do want to say is that I think it's unfortunate that the media continues to describe this individual as a whistleblower, an honorific that this individual most certainly does not deserve. A partisan hit job does not make you a whistleblower just because you go through the Whistleblower Protection Act.
Well, first of all, how do you know that this is a partisan hit job? And how do you know that this is not a whistleblower? In fact,
okay, right there, let's stop and see, is that Stephen Miller very tactically excuse me, threw Mr. Chris Wallace off his feet verbally by setting the foundation of truth up front, and Chris was noticeably taken back as we move forward.
Under DNI, the Department of National Intelligence rules, well, you know what? Let's go back this, and we're going to jump around a little bit because I didn't know you were going to go here.
Yeah.
Here is the comment from the DNI, the acting DNI before Congress, Joe McGuire, in his testimony this week. Take a look.
I believe that the whistleblower and the Inspector General have acted in good faith throughout. I have every reason to believe that they have done everything by the book and followed the law.
That is the Director of National Intelligence, Joe McGuire, a lifetime servant of this country, a Navy SEAL. He says that the whistleblower was acting in good faith and acting by the book. On what basis do you say that this was a partisan hit job?
First of all, if you read the 7-page little Nancy Drew novel that the whistleblower put together.
I love how he said little Nancy Drew novel that they put together. Steve Miller, watch him just cut Chris Wallace to shreds.
It drips with condescension, righteous indignation, and contempt for the president. It's also ludicrous on its face. It describes an elaborate cover-up that also, by the way, the president discussed on Sean Hannity, April 25th. What kind of secret cover-up are you also discussing on the airwaves of Fox News? Furthermore, the Inspector General found evidence of political bias in the individual, which is not disputed by anybody.
But wait a minute. But he also, both the Director of National Intelligence and the Inspector General said they also found his comments to be credible and a matter of urgent concern, and they turned it over to the Justice Department. So despite all that, they thought that this was a credible complaint.
And they're wrong, Chris.
Well, on whose basis?
Chris, I've worked in the government now, the federal government now, for nearly 3 years. I know what the deep state looks like. I know the difference between a whistleblower and a deep state operative. This is a deep state operative, pure and simple. People who haven't been in the federal government, who haven't worked in the White House, may not appreciate this. But the situation is you have a group of unelected bureaucrats who think that they need to take down this president. I'll attend interagency meetings, Chris, where I know for a certain fact, if I don't invite the right people, the meeting will leak. If I don't say the right thing, they'll go to the Hill. If we propose a policy idea that they don't approve of, they'll work with Democrat appropriators to try to block it. They leak this president's phone calls. They publish hit pieces. They publish fake stories. They've been doing this continuously for nearly 3 years, and their motives and their agenda is clear. This is about, do you want a democracy in this country or do you want a deep state? It's a binary choice for the American people.
Again, this person that you're accusing of all this, the Director of National Intelligence, Joe McGuire, a lifelong servant of this country, said was acting in good faith and going by the book. But enough with the rhetoric. Let's talk about some specific facts in this. Why did President Trump use his private attorney, Rudy Giuliani, and as we just reported, 2 other private lawyers to try to dig up dirt from the Ukrainian government on Joe Biden rather than going through his State Department?
First of all, and most importantly, when we keep talking about, quote, digging up dirt, it's an interesting choice of words. One of 2 things is true, Chris. Either the Ukrainian government or people associated with it possess real and actual knowledge of corrupt dealings by the Biden family, or they don't. If they do, is it not in the interest of all Americans to know what that is?
We're going to get to what the Bidens.
Notice how Chris Wallace he will sidestep the Biden issue. Hey, folks, listen. If this Hunter Biden, wherever he's at today, he's in deep trouble. He's in deep trouble. I know personally that kind of deal, that ain't going to go. He is in deep trouble, and the spirit inside of these people that's driving them this direction is that they do not want the current status quo to change. When they'll be talking here a little bit, or you'll see throughout the day and throughout from times in the future here, they'll be talking about the prior prosecutor in Ukraine that comes back in and says, oh, Biden wasn't doing anything. Think about it, people. That is the prior administrations of our country, and others are deeply entrenched and paid off by the upper tier, the bankers and the globalists, not the nation states. You know, the globalists and the bankers, they oversee all nation states under the centralized banking system, or the SWIFT system, or the IMF. So that's what the battle that we have. But listen up, here we go.
In a minute, but I've asked you a specific question. I'd like a specific answer. The president has the State Department. He's got the CIA. He's got the Pentagon. He's got a number of other agencies. Why did he use 3 private lawyers to get information on Biden from the Ukrainian government rather than go through all of the agencies of his government?
All of the agencies of the government are contaminated from years gone by. Business as usual in the past there was definitely a curtain door that you walk through from the real government side, where we're doing all this shenanigans on the floor and talks and everything. You go through that curtain, and that's where the rubber meets the road. And that's what we're trying to fight. And there's our government is contaminated through the CIA, the FBI, and that's why Trump needed someone to go over, get the facts from the horse's mouth before they are able to be contaminated by the deep state and globalists and the bankers, and we'd have the real facts. That's why Rudy went there. Good move, Trump.
2 different points. Number 1.
How about answering my question?
John Durham, as you know.
Wait a minute. John Durham is investigating something completely different. Stephen, I'm asking you.
See, when the opposite side there, the banker side or the globalist side, the Democratic side, they sidestep every issue, every question with a foundational statement and just ramble forever. Well, Stephen Miller understands that game, and he's simply going to make sure he has foundation before he answers the question that Chris Wallace is trying to ask him and bait him to make an answer. Steve, hang in there, Steve Miller. I wish we had an army of you.
A direct question. Why did the president use private attorneys rather than go to the State Department? If you don't know, that's an acceptable answer, but let's not talk about John Durham, who's investigating the Trump investigation.
There's 2 issues that were brought up.
I want you to look at the faces and the demeanor and the mental stability in this debate on the faces, and see if you can read what's in the faces. Steve Miller is solid where he stands. Chris Wallace, look at his face. He's shaky. He's off guard. I mean, he's off balance. Steve Miller is speaking the truth. There's no denying the truth, and there's no defense against it. Remember that. Here we go.
I'm not asking 2 issues. Why did he do it?
Chris, I understand that you have your question. I have my answer. There's 2 issues that were brought up in the phone call.
You have your non-answer at this point.
There were 2 issues brought up in the phone call. One was Ukrainian knowledge about the nature of the collusion investigation that has inflicted so much pain and damage in our country. My point is that the Attorney General has appointed somebody from the Justice Department to look into that issue. Then there's the additional matter of Ukrainian corruption, which Giuliani, among others, are looking at. And it is proper and natural for, frankly, anybody concerned about the future of Ukraine and the United States to want to know information about corrupt dealings. What I find astonishing, Chris, is that the people that are so enraged about an effort to find any true and actual knowledge of foreign corrupt dealings related to Ukraine are the same ones who've been using the foreign-produced dossier by a British spy to put this country through unending
I'm
political
simply
turmoil.
asking a question as to why.
Chris Wallace does not want Steve Miller to lay this foundation of what's really going on. Look at Wallace's face compared to his demeanor, what he's sending through the message of his face, and what Steve Miller's sending. Totally two radically different things.
Guilty of interfering in our
I'm
election
simply
by
asking
using
you a
the
question
dossier.
as to why the president didn't use his government. You apparently are not going to answer that. I'll ask you another question. Why did the president decide to withhold $391 million in military aid to Ukraine last July
The president has
that
been-
had been approved by Congress?
The president has been clear and consistent on this issue, not merely for the time he's been in office, his whole time as a candidate, and frankly, decades before that.
I'm just simply asking why in July did he decide to withhold the aid?
About the problem of burden sharing in Ukraine and with our NATO allies. He has been clear and consistent on this issue, plus the matter of Ukrainian corruption. And for reasons I cannot fathom, the media, which is ordinarily interested in sunshine and transparency above all else, is remarkably uncurious about the information Ukraine possesses about the corruption of the previous administration.
Okay, but let's just make this point. In May, as part of a regular interagency process, in May, 2 months before he withheld the aid, the Pentagon certified to Congress, a formal process certified to Congress after a rigorous process and after consultation with the State Department, that Ukraine had made dramatic progress in fighting corruption and that the aid should be released. Why did the president, if the argument is corruption, why did the president go against his own Pentagon and his own State Department?
What you have to understand, what Chris is saying is that why did the president go against all of those after they had done a full investigation and found out that the current prosecutor was okay or whatever he's talking about? Think about it, people. Think about it. That's exactly what's been the problem. We're relying on the Pentagon, the current intelligence from prior business operations or operating procedures. That is not the way that it's supposed to be done, and we're cleaning up all of that. That's why he's not relying on these facts.
Chris, I don't understand how you can ask that question while at the same time admonishing the president for wanting to get to the bottom of perhaps one of the biggest corruption scandals concerning Ukraine in the last few years.
I'm not admonishing anybody. I'm simply asking why did he go?
Chris.
I mean, with all due respect, this is an exercise in obfuscation. Why did the president go against his own Pentagon and State Department?
There's a tone of judgment in all of your questions. So yes, you are admonishing, and I can't speak to.
No, that's judgment on your part, sir.
And I can't speak to every single mid-level and low-level bureaucrat in the U.S. government.
This is the Deputy Secretary of Defense for policy. You consider John Rood a minion in the State Department?
It's the president.
Look at him. Just because they're in the State Department doesn't mean they're a patriot.
It's the president's job and sworn duty to safeguard taxpayer dollars and the United States government's foreign policy. Getting to the bottom of a corruption scandal in Ukraine is in the American national interest. And if you want to understand why that complainant is so obviously politically biased, when he says that the president is threatening national security by trying to expose corruption, when he says, or she, that the president is hurting national security by trying to get to the bottom of a gigantic scandal that nobody has unearthed, the president is the whistleblower here. The president of the United States is the whistleblower. And this individual is a saboteur trying to undermine a democratically elected government.
That's it, people. Wake up and smell the roses, because that is exactly what's going on here. The president is the whistleblower for all of us on all of this crap.
Is he a spy? Is he committing treason?
I do not know.
Well, the president said that, you know.
The president correctly pointed out that the behavior of this individual is close to a spy. I don't know who the individual is. All I know is at some point, Chris, we have to focus on the real scandal, which is 3 years of deep state sabotage.
Okay, I want to talk about a different scandal, and you'll be very happy that I'm headed here. The president says the real story is the corruption by Vice President Biden and
Did you notice the tone, the way that this news, the way that Chris Wallace went with that? I know that you'll be real happy when we switch over to the Biden and Hunter deal, because you're trying. We're trying to find out the truth. Look at him. Chris Wallace is deep state. I hate people saying he is on the dark side.
And his son, Hunter Biden, who was on the board of a Ukrainian energy company. How specifically, and I'm going to give you 1 minute uninterrupted, how specifically did the Bidens break the law in Ukraine?
The Burisma company, as you know, was under investigation. It has a Ukrainian oligarch behind it who was under investigation. We know that there was severe concern in the Obama administration at the time about Biden being appointed as the lead on Ukrainian policy, and then his son getting a lucrative $50,000 a month deal with the company. The son had no experience in the legal issues he was supposed to advise on.
How did he break the law?
He knew nothing about Ukrainian law, and he knew absolutely nothing about natural gas, the issue at the heart of the company. The Biden then threatened to withhold $1 billion in aid unless the prosecutor was filed.
You realize that also the International Monetary Fund, almost every other government in the West, was also asking for that prosecutor to be fired, and that in fact, there was no investigation going on at Burisma, the name of the company, at that time. I
don't know that to be true, but
it is true. But
I know what people have said, but the reality is that why is the media so obsessed with every single aspect of this investigation, but they don't want to uncover the potential corrupt dealings of Hunter Biden and his father? Why they don't want to know?
I have one last question to ask you,
and I do want to put this on in China. Why don't they want to know about?
Here is Yuri Lutsenko. He was the prosecutor general of Ukraine for 3 years, including the period during which President Trump spoke with President Zelensky in July of 2019. Here is Lutsenko this week. Take a look.
Before I even let you hear what this guy says, bear in mind, what you're looking at there is someone who's already been paid off in the past to do whatever is needed to cover what they're doing, be it Biden or otherwise. They're also holding Hillary Clinton's server over there that Fusion GPS has, as well as this Vistar or whatever they're talking about. Also, you're going to find, as you dig a little deeper, people, as we will into this, that Mr. Boy from the Mormon, what's his name, Mitt Romney, is involved with this company that Joe Biden's son was working with. They're all milking that son of a gun for as much as they can get. And this cat right here was the one prior that was doing all the investigations to make sure that they just didn't go in certain little areas. But Trump found this out. And this guy here was replaced by someone and found out that they threw the other one out because he's trying to do the right thing. That's what's going on. Take a listen.
Don't know any possible violation of Ukrainian law. Once again, Ukrainian law by Biden and Biden Jr.
This is Lutsenko, who was the prosecutor general at the time the president called the Ukrainian president, says Joe Biden and his son did nothing wrong.
If you're going to use Lutsenko as a witness, then you have to also acknowledge he's made incredibly damning allegations against Ukraine and against the U.S. government involving the origins of the 2016 Russia collusion conspiracy. So if you're going to use him as a witness, you got to take all of it or none of it. You can't pick and choose. It's not a buffet. But
but I guess the point is, if he clearly is saying those things about Ukraine and the 2016 election, he's not carrying water for Joe Biden. He says, Joe Biden, you can't pick or choose either.
I'm not. I'm saying
you're saying, well, okay, we agree with him on this, but we don't on the other.
I'm saying
welcome to the buffet.
I'm saying that an investigation is urgently needed when you look at the full pattern of facts. But the single most important point is this: the American people in 2016 said we want a completely new direction for our country. They elected new lawmakers and they elected a new president to deliver that direction. He is the sole elected person in the executive branch, and yet.
Well, that's not true. Actually, you got the vice president as well.
Yes, and all executive power is vested in the president. But there are deep state operatives who for 3 years have done nothing but try to leak undermine, hurt, and harm the ability of this president to institute this change. Do we want to be governed by an unelected bureaucracy or by a democratically elected president? That is the sole issue facing the American people.
The only point I would make, and I have to move on, is that in 2018, the American people elected a Democratic House. So they are a co-equal branch of government. Stephen, thank you. Thanks.
Well, that gives you a real clear-cut understanding of what's going on here. Again, in the future, we're going to be, people can come to our website. We're having some medical issues with the programmer. God bless him, and sending prayers to Ryan and his beautiful bride, Amanda. She is having some medical issues, which is slowing our launch. And I know this is a long video. Hopefully you sat through it. But in the future, we'll have a website where people can, while I'm doing these, they can be interacting in our chat room or on a live call somewhere, and we'll have all these things leveled out. Get as many people as you can to start listening to these little AM Buzz shows and the ones that I do in the future until we go live, and you'll be way ahead of the game. And I'm going to tell you, I know no one likes to hear about it, but we need help getting a lot of people, and you can make a tremendous amount of money, what you call money or value, by helping out. I'm talking about more than you can possibly imagine. The truth does pay, and it pays well. God bless you. God bless the horse you rode in on. May you go out and create a wonder-filled day. It is by choice. And until I chat with you again, this is Red Hour, Jedi, all kind of stuff, except whatever you do, don't call me Sue. Red Hour, we down.